The desert winds howled louder than war horns. Sandstorms raged across the scarred lands of Zeratul, where no human dared to go without armor. But Caleb wasn't like other humans. He didn't wear high-tech suits. He walked with only a ragged scarf, a cracked visor, and an old map that didn't show the traps hidden beneath the dunes. He was searching for something lost, not treasure, not glory. He had followed a weak distress signal, one cry in the void of space. That was enough for him to land his tiny pod in this cursed wasteland. He didn't expect to find life. And yet, something found him first. The quicksand had no warning. His boots sank before he could even shout. He cursed, struggling, but the more he moved, the faster he sank. Just when the sand reached his waist, he saw her, an alien girl, barely conscious, also trapped in the same pit. Her blue skin was bruised, and her hair clung to her face like soaked cloth. She was dying, but her eyes were open. Caleb reached out without thinking. He wasn't sure if he was saving her or trying to pull himself free using her body. But the moment his hand touched hers, something strange happened. The sand froze, literally. The swirling trap solidified into cold glass. The girl gasped, and her eyes widened. Caleb pulled her close, breaking the hard shell of frozen dust, and they both tumbled to the side. Her voice was dry, but her words were clear. "You touched me." And the sands obeyed. He didn't understand, but he knew she needed help. He wrapped her in his scarf and dragged her to his pod. She looked at the pod like it was some kind of divine relic. "You're not from this world," she whispered. "No," Caleb replied, tightening the straps. "But I'm here now. And I think I just saved your life." She didn't reply, but something in her eyes changed. Not fear, not confusion, but recognition. Like she had seen him in a dream before, or maybe in an ancient painting. That night, while she rested, Caleb checked the old map again. It didn't show where the quicksand trap was, and yet it had marked this area as sacred ground. In alien symbols he didn't understand, a phrase glowed under the desert moon. When he pointed his scanner at it, the translation came up. Trial of the Clanless. The next morning they were surrounded. Dozens of tall, armored figures stood outside his pod, each holding a long spear that shimmered with plasma. Their eyes glowed, violet in the morning light. One of them stepped forward and pointed his weapon at Caleb's chest. "You pulled the air from the sands," the warrior said. "You passed the trial." "I didn't take any trial," Caleb said, confused. The warrior ignored him and kneeled. So did the others. All of them bowed. The alien girl, now awake and stronger, stepped outside the pod and looked at Caleb with a strange mix of fear and awe. "You don't know what you've done," she said softly. "By touching me in the sacred sands, by saving me, the law now names you lord of our clan." Caleb blinked. "I just wanted to help." The girl nodded. "Then help us survive, because war is coming." Behind them, a ship exploded in the sky. Another clan had seen what happened, and they were not ready to bow. Caleb watched the burning sky with wide eyes. The explosion was no accident. A rival clan had fired a warning shot, but it didn't feel like a warning. It felt like a challenge, a declaration that blood would be spilled if Caleb didn't surrender the girl he had saved. He turned to her. She was standing taller now, wrapped in cloth given by her own people. Her name, he finally learned, was Sira. She was the last blood of the Surnai clan, thought to be lost forever in the trial sands. Her people had been leaderless for years, waiting for someone to free her from that sacred trap. Caleb didn't understand their laws, but one thing was clear. By touching her and pulling her out, he had triggered some kind of ancient bond. Now the warriors looked to him for orders. He was no longer just a stranger. He was a symbol. A symbol they would kill or die for. Sira led him to the heart of the camp, a circle made of polished bones and red stone. There stood the sand throne. It wasn't made of gold or machines. It was old, simple, and carved with stories of the past. When Caleb stepped closer, every warrior fell silent. He didn't want to sit, but his legs moved anyway. The moment he sat down, something inside the throne lit up. Not with light, but with heat. His body felt heavy, like the desert itself had wrapped around his chest. The warriors beat their spears to the ground in rhythm. Sira stepped beside him, her voice echoing through the circle. The lost one has returned. The throne has accepted him. Caleb of Earth is now Caleb of Surnai. He stood up fast. No, I'm not your leader. I don't even belong here. Sira looked at him with calm eyes. That doesn't matter. The law has chosen. If you reject the throne, they will believe the gods rejected us again, and the rival clans will destroy us before nightfall. Caleb's heart raced. He wasn't ready to be anyone's leader. He had no army, no strategy, no plan. But he remembered the look on Sira's face when he pulled her from the quicksand. She had been ready to die. Now she was ready to follow. Then what do we do? He asked. Sira pulled out a glowing stone from her belt. We fight. Suddenly an explosion rocked the camp. Dust flew everywhere. Screams rang out as plasma arrows flew through the air. The enemy had arrived, fierce riders on sand beasts, crashing through the outer defenses. Caleb didn't wait for orders. He ran into the fight. Using nothing but a broken staff and his fists, he knocked 2 attackers off. They're beasts. His body moved on instinct, trained from years of survival back on the mining colonies. The Surnai warriors saw him fight, and their shouts grew louder. For the first time in years, they had a leader who bled beside them. Sira fought too, her movements fast and graceful. She guarded Caleb's back like a shadow. When one rider tried to strike him down, she jumped between them and stabbed the enemy with her curved blade. By the time the dust settled, the enemy had fled. But this was just a test. A bigger war was coming. Caleb stood in the middle of the battlefield, bruised and breathless. Around him, warriors chanted his name. He wasn't sure if he deserved it, but deep down, he knew one thing. He couldn't walk away now. The battlefield was silent now. Ash floated through the air like falling snow. Caleb stood in the middle, surrounded by the broken weapons and scorched ground. He didn't feel like a victor. He felt like a man standing in someone else's shoes. The warriors gathered around him, waiting. But for what? Orders? A speech? He had no idea what a warlord was supposed to do. Still, he raised his voice. We won this time, he said. But they'll be back, stronger. So we need to be ready. Some nodded, others shouted, but one old warrior stepped forward and asked a question that made the crowd go quiet. What will be your first command, Lord Caleb? Caleb glanced at Sira. She gave him a slight nod as if saying, It's your move now. He thought quickly. Double the guards, build trenches around the camp, and get me a map of every clan territory nearby. The warriors moved fast. His voice had weight now. His words were not suggestions. They were law. Later, in a quiet tent made of beast hide, Sira sat beside him. She cleaned a cut on his arm while he stared at the map on the table. Symbols glowed softly, each one marking a different clan. Red ones were hostile. Yellow were watchers. Only one was green. His. You did well, Sira said. I was just guessing, Caleb admitted. Even guesses can lead armies if spoken with fire, she said. He turned to her. Why do they follow me so easily? I'm not from here. I'm not even one of you. Sira hesitated. Her fingers tightened around the cloth she held. Then she whispered, Because I made them believe. Caleb frowned. What do you mean? Sira looked into his eyes. The trial of the clanless. It was more than just a trap. It was a sacred rite. Only a chosen bloodline could awaken the sands and break the curse. When you touched me and the quicksand froze, they believed it was destiny. Caleb leaned forward. You told them I'm chosen? I told them what they needed to hear, she said softly. But is it true? Sira didn't answer at first, then she stood and walked to the edge of the tent. The truth is, I'm not just the last of the Surnai. I'm the daughter of a traitor. My father gave our enemies the map to our strongholds. That's why I was sent into the sands, as punishment. Caleb stared in disbelief. They buried you alive because of your father? They called it tradition, she said. Only if someone from the outside saved me could the curse be lifted. He stood up, his voice sharp. That's not justice, that's madness. She turned to him, eyes wet but fierce. That madness kept them alive. Until now. A sudden horn blasted outside. The air shifted. Caleb ran out of the tent, Sira right behind him. At the edge of the dunes, scouts pointed toward a massive storm rolling in, not of sand, but of machines, enemy war crawlers, giant armored tanks, dozens of them. Caleb's heart sank. We don't have the firepower for this. A warrior nearby shouted, We must retreat to the stone cliffs. No, Caleb said, voice firm. They'll trap us there. We hold the camp. Sira pulled a blade from her back. Then lead us again, Lord of the Sand. And Caleb, still, unsure if he was a hero or just the last fool standing, raised his fist and gave his first true war command. Prepare every fighter. Tonight we make the storm bleed. Enemy war crawlers thundered across the dunes, kicking up waves of dust as they advanced in rows like an unstoppable tide. The Surnai warriors lined up behind crude barricades made of stone and broken wreckage. Plasma arrows were passed down the line. Energy blades were lit with a soft blue glow. Caleb stood at the front. He didn't wear a commander's cloak or a royal helm. He wore dust and blood and the scars from last night's battle. But when he shouted orders, the warriors obeyed. He had earned their trust not by law but by standing shoulder to shoulder in the fight. Sira stood beside him, her blade already humming. They expect us to run, she said. Then we disappoint them, Caleb replied. The first crawler fired. A bolt of plasma streaked across the field, smashing into the outer wall. Warriors screamed, some scattered. Caleb didn't move. He raised his staff and shouted, Hold the line! As if lightning answered him, the second crawler was struck by a hidden mine Caleb had ordered planted during the night. The enemy tank exploded, flipping into the air and crashing into another one behind it. The Surnai warriors roared. Caleb led a charge to the left flank, using the smoke as cover. They climbed a ridge and rained down fire from above. Enemy foot soldiers pushed forward, but they were slow. Caleb's side was faster, desperate, and now inspired. For the first time in years, Surnai was not defending. They were winning. But just when hope began to rise, a new enemy stepped onto the field. A tall, armored warlord exited the biggest crawler. His armor was black and gold. His face was hidden behind a cracked mask. He carried no weapon, because his hands were deadly enough. The enemy warriors parted as he walked. Caleb narrowed his eyes. Something about the man's movement felt familiar. The warlord pointed at Caleb from across the field. Bring me the human, he shouted. Sira froze beside Caleb. He knows, you. Caleb was already walking toward him. I'm about to find out why. They met in the center of the battlefield, both sides watching in silence. Caleb held his staff tight. The warlord removed his mask. Caleb's heart nearly stopped. It was a human face. Scarred. Older. But human. You. Caleb whispered. I thought you died, the man said with a twisted smile. Caleb stepped back. You were the captain of the Mercury 7. You left us behind on Jericho Station. The warlord laughed. You were just a cargo tech, and now you're a lord? The galaxy is truly broken. You killed over 30 miners to save your own skin, Caleb said, voice shaking. The warlord's smile vanished. They were weak, but not you. No. I saw something in you even back then, and now here you are, leading aliens like some desert king. Caleb gritted his teeth. I lead people who still have honor. The warlord raised his hand. Then let's see how long that honor keeps you breathing. He snapped his fingers. A hidden drone exploded near the Cernai command tent. Warriors screamed. Sira shouted, "For the medics." The camp was under attack from within. Caleb turned back to the warlord, eyes burning. "I should have let the sand swallow you." The warlord smirked. "You still can. Run, and maybe I'll spare the rest." But Caleb didn't run. He raised his weapon, and he charged. Caleb charged like a storm. The warlord didn't flinch. The two men crashed into each other with the force of falling stars. Staff met gauntlet. Sand flew. Each strike echoed across the battlefield like thunder rolling through the valley. The warriors on both sides froze, watching the duel in silence. Caleb moved with speed and fury. He had fought to survive before, but this was different. This time he was fighting for others. For a clan that now looked to him with hope. For a girl who had once been buried by her own people. For honor, stolen by a man who had once abandoned him. The warlord blocked each blow with precision. He was stronger, trained, and cruel. But Caleb had something the warlord didn't: rage that burned with purpose. "You always were loud," the warlord grunted, throwing Caleb backward. Caleb hit the ground hard. His staff rolled from his grip. He gasped, chest heaving, blood on his lips. The warlord walked toward him, slow and sure. "This clan, this desert, it will bury you like it buries everything else." Caleb coughed, forcing himself to his feet. "No, not this time." The warlord swung. Caleb caught the punch with both hands. But then something strange happened. The sand beneath him began to rise. Not from wind, but from him. The grains lifted, into the air, glowing faintly. They spiraled around Caleb's arms and legs, forming armor, raw, shifting, and alive. The crowd gasped. Even Sira stepped forward in shock. The warlord hesitated. "What is this?" Caleb didn't answer. He moved. This time he didn't swing a weapon. He was the weapon. With one leap, he slammed his fist into the warlord's chest, sending him flying 10 feet back. The black armor cracked. The warlord groaned as he hit the ground, breathless. Caleb looked down at his hands. The sand flowed across his skin like water, forming blades, then fading, then returning. He wasn't wearing it. It was responding to him. Sira rushed to his side. "You've awakened it," she whispered. "The blood sand. The ancient gift of our ancestors." Caleb shook his head. "But I'm not one of you." Sira stared at him with wide eyes. "Maybe not by birth, but the desert, it has claimed you now." The warlord slowly stood, coughing. His mask lay shattered at his feet. He stared at Caleb, confused, afraid for the first time. "This isn't possible," he growled. "You're nothing. You were born in the dirt." Caleb stepped closer. "That's where things grow." He raised his hand. The sand obeyed. A storm of shards flew toward the warlord, cutting his cloak and knocking him to his knees. Caleb didn't finish him. He turned his back. "This fight's over. Leave, and tell your clans. The Cernai have returned." The warlord screamed in rage, but didn't attack again. His soldiers pulled him into a crawler, and the machine slowly retreated into the dust. Cheers erupted from the Cernai camp. But Caleb didn't celebrate. He looked at the sand flowing between his fingers and asked the question no one could answer. What am I becoming? The enemy had fallen back. For now, the camp was quiet. But the silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like the space between two storms. Caleb sat near the edge of the canyon, staring at his hands. Sand still flowed lightly around his fingers, like it was waiting for his command. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just watched the grains drift in circles, whispering a language he couldn't understand. Behind him, Sira approached. She didn't wear her armor. Her blade was gone. In her hand was a small pouch tied with red string. Her steps were slow. "You've changed," she said. Caleb didn't look at her. "You knew this would happen, didn't you?" She knelt beside him. "Not like this. I thought the trial would choose someone strong enough to protect us. I didn't know it would awaken the blood sand." That hasn't happened in generations. Caleb glanced at her. You're still hiding something. Sira looked down at the pouch in her hand. This was left by my mother before she vanished. No one was allowed to open it until the true Lord of the Sand was found. She opened it slowly. Inside was a smooth crystal, glowing with a warm orange light. Caleb leaned closer. Symbols moved across its surface like crawling fire. What is it? He asked. A memory stone, she said. It holds truth from before the wars, before the clans, before we forgot who we were. She placed the stone in Caleb's hand. The world around him vanished. In its place, images filled his mind. Old cities, tall towers made of shining glass. Humans walked beside aliens, working together. There were no tribes, no sand prisons. There was unity. But then came fire, explosions, betrayal, and finally, the exile. The Sernai weren't just an alien tribe. They were once human too, modified, rejected, left behind when Earth colonists fled during the Great Collapse. The blood sand wasn't magic. It was ancient tech, coded into their DNA, forgotten over time, worshipped like a god. Caleb gasped and dropped the stone. They were us, he said. Sira nodded slowly. And you may be their bridge home. He stood, breath short. They'll never follow me if they know. Sira's voice was quiet. They already do, but others won't. If the clans learn the truth, they'll unite, not to serve you, but to destroy you. Footsteps echoed behind them. It was Joran, one of the senior warriors. He had heard everything. You've seen it, he said, voice sharp. The human brings danger. That stone is forbidden. Only the High Circle can. Caleb raised his hand without thinking. The sand near Joran's feet rose and wrapped around his legs like vines. Joran froze. You dare use the gift on me? Caleb's voice was calm. I didn't do it. The sand did. Sira stepped between them. This truth cannot be buried again. If we keep hiding, the other clans will wipe us out. Only united can we survive. Joran's eyes narrowed. Then the council must decide, not this outsider. He turned and stormed off. Caleb looked at Sira. How many others will fight me when they learn? Too many, she whispered. But some will follow, because they believe, because you saved them. He nodded. Then we prepare. For what? She asked. For the meeting of the clans, Caleb said. If they want to challenge me, let them do it in the open. I'll give them the truth, and I'll give them a choice. The Great Canyon of Zarik hadn't seen peace in decades. It was once a place of trade where leaders met to share water and settle disputes. But over time, it became a place of judgment. Blood had stained its rocks. Now, it would witness something no one expected, a human standing as lord among clans. Caleb arrived before sunrise, walking alone into the circle of stone. Sira followed at a distance, wearing the dark cloak of a war heir. Behind them, warriors from Sernai stood in silence. Heads low, weapons lowered. It wasn't a battle. Not yet. One by one, the other clans came. The giant red-scaled warriors of the Fairhas, the cloaked desert stalkers of the Varn, the high-born riders of the Sky Clan, with feathers on their helmets and fire in their eyes. Each brought their own laws, their own pride, and their own doubts. They didn't bow when they saw Caleb, they laughed. He's the Lord? One chieftain scoffed. He walks without guards, he wears no crown. He bleeds like a miner, another said. He's not even born of the sand, growled the leader of the Fairhas. Caleb didn't answer. He stood still, letting their words bounce off him like dust in the wind. Then a drumbeat echoed through the canyon. The oldest warrior of the desert stepped forward, Yura, the stonekeeper. Her face was dry and cracked like the land. She leaned on a spear made of bone. She raised her hand. All clans are present, let the circle speak. Caleb stepped into the center. I don't come with titles, he said, voice calm. I didn't ask to lead anyone, but when I pulled a dying girl from the sands, your laws said I became something more. I didn't run. I stayed, I bled with you. I fought for you. A voice shouted. And now you ask to rule? No, Caleb replied. I ask for something greater. Unity, the warriors murmured. You speak like a priest, Yura said. But this is not a place of dreams. What proof do you offer? Caleb turned to Sira. She stepped forward and handed him the memory stone. Caleb raised it high. This holds your past, the truth of what we were before the desert. You were not always clans fighting each other. You were one people. You had cities, knowledge, and peace. The leaders shifted uncomfortably. Caleb looked at them all. The warlord who attacked us, he's coming again. And next time, he won't stop with Cernai. He will burn all of you, one by one. And you think we'll follow you just because? You shout, barked the Sky Clan chief. No, Caleb said. He raised his hand. The sand in the center of the canyon stirred. It rose in swirling waves, shaped itself into symbols, each clan's crest, glowing in orange light. Then it fused into one. Gasps echoed across the gathering. He commands the blood sand, someone whispered. Caleb lowered his hand. I don't command it. I respect it. And it answers respect. Yura stepped forward, her old eyes shining. You carry a spark I thought lost, but still, this is not my choice. The clans must vote. One by one, the leaders stepped forward. Some rejected him, others bowed. In the end, it was even. The final vote belonged to Sira. She stepped into the center, looked at Caleb, then at the other leaders. I was buried in the sand for my father's crimes. Caleb pulled me out. Not just from the earth, but from shame. He could have walked away. He didn't. She faced the crowd. I vote yes. The circle fell silent. Then slowly the warriors began to kneel, not in fear, not in defeat, but in acceptance. For the first time in memory, the clans lowered their weapons at once. But above the canyon, black smoke rose in the sky. The warlord was returning, and he was bringing an army. The black smoke thickened in the sky. Engines roared like thunder. The warlord had returned, and this time, he brought the full weight of his stolen army. Dozens of war crawlers, flying ships, swarms of metal beasts that crawled across the sand like shadows. In the canyon, the newly united clans prepared for their final stand. Caleb stood before them, armor made of flowing sand wrapped around his body like a second skin. He was not born of their world, but now he was their world. The warriors looked to him not as a stranger, but as a leader chosen by fate. Sira stood beside him, her blade resting on her shoulder. They'll be here before sunset, she said. Some clans are still afraid. Caleb nodded. Let them be afraid. Fear makes us human, but standing through fear, that makes us more. He climbed to the highest rock and raised his voice so all could hear. We are not fighting for land. We are not fighting for laws. We are fighting for a future where no child is buried for her blood, where no people kneel out of fear, and where no one is left behind in the sand. His words rang out across the canyon. And if we fall as one. A cheer shook the walls of the valley. The battle began as the sun touched the edge of the horizon. The enemy descended with fire and machines. Crawlers fired plasma bolts that shattered stone. Flying ships rained missiles. The sand boiled under their engines. But the united clans did not break. They moved as one body, one voice, one force. Caleb led from the front. The blood sand rose, around him like a living shield. He leaped through fire, shattered enemy armor with his bare hands, and tore open crawler hulls. His power had grown, not from rage, but from purpose. The desert didn't obey him because he controlled it. It believed in him. Sira fought at his side, a blur of grace and fury. She defended the wounded, led charges, and rallied those who fell. Her people now called her Blade of the Sands. The battle raged for hours. Then through the smoke, the warlord arrived. His armor had changed. It was darker, heavier, powered by stolen tech. He rode a machine beast that roared like a god of war. He pointed his black spear at Caleb and shouted, "No more speeches, no more lies. This ends now." Caleb walked forward alone. "I agree." They clashed. The warlord struck like lightning, but Caleb blocked each blow with walls of sand. Their battle shook the canyon, carving deep scars in the earth. Metal against stone, rage against resolve. The warlord laughed through broken teeth. "You think this desert made you strong? I made you. I left you to die." Caleb's eyes blazed. "And I lived." With a final roar, Caleb summoned every grain of sand in the valley. It swirled like a storm, wrapped around the warlord, lifted him into the air, and crushed his armor from all sides. The machine beast screamed and collapsed. The warlord hit the ground, broken and silent. The battlefield went still. Then, the warriors of all clans raised their weapons, not in war, in victory. That night, under a sky full of stars, the desert was quiet again. No screams, no engines, only the sound of wind passing through the canyons. Caleb stood atop the sand throne once more. Sierra joined him, placing her blade at his feet. "We were waiting for someone like you," she said. Caleb looked out over the silent crowd. "You weren't waiting, you were becoming, I just reminded you." He didn't speak again that night, but the sand did, and the clans never forgot the day a man who had no title, no bloodline, and no crown rose from the dust and became something more, the human who earned the desert, the lord of the clan.